Okay, the videos are running. You can start.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to see such a fantastic turnout on a exceedingly cold day in the middle of winter. So welcome on behalf of Lynn and Joffe Books and Publishers. It's lovely to have you all here today. And it really is so exciting to have Wanda finally arrive. So, I first met Lynn to talk about Wanda exactly a year ago, because before the festive season, and we indulged in millions of Lindt chocolate balls. I don't know why we did that, but they were on sale. I forgot. Anyway, our festive tables were decked with beautiful Lindt balls for the whole of the season.
Lindt ball.
Exactly. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure working with Lynn and getting to know her in the last year. And I'm so happy that this day has finally arrived. We've had a really, really good start to the life of Wanda. We've had a fantastic launch with exclusive books online. And we've had already TV and radio interviews.
Peter Terry is right there, he's taking autographs after mine.
Oh, well done. Thank you, Peter Terry. And so we feel that today's celebration has to happen, and we all want you to have a fabulous time. But we also want to talk a little bit about Wanda. So, along the way of this launch from last week, we've gathered up a number of questions that have been asked about the book. So we thought it would be a good idea to use these questions and to get the discussion going. So, I wanted to ask Lynn, what do you wonder? At what point in the process did you choose the name Wanda? Did this affect her changing her identity? Can't you just ask me, like, was varsity fun or something like that? So very briefly, and I have to, and Madeline, just shout out to my BFF from the MA. We did the MA together, we cried together, we laughed together, we went on retreats together, we bantered together. When you do the MA, the creative writing course, you have to do a proposal, then you have to do the work, then you have to do a reflexive. And in my proposal, her name was Wanda Lustolovsky. And it was too obvious. I mean, you know, it wouldn't have been in the religion section had I called it Wanda Lustolovsky. But as I went along, sort of, originally I was going to do kind of memoirs of a 70s kugel. And I was kind of going to do like the story of my life, which is quite interesting, but not. And then it started to become a work of fiction, at which point, knowing the university and the research, I did research into the picaresque novel form, which was a pre-novel form, and there's a book called Lazarus de Tormes. I don't know if any of you have read it, it's not very popular these days, it was written 400 years ago. And when I saw the Lazarillo, I realized that because I wanted it to be a reincarnated, sort of cursed by immortality character, that Lazarus was a fantastic surname. She was always Wanda. I have a friend, she's not here today, whose name is Wanda, who I traveled with quite a lot. Cheers to Wanda, but she was always going to be Wanda when she stopped being me. Does that answer your question? So I then have shuffled these cards around because of Lynn's responses. So, the next question I want is, what do you wonder, how historically accurate is this novel? What was your approach to research, turn research into fiction? Every single word is true.
in the year 272, where she gets it on with Zenobia, we did a lot of seances to make sure. Actually, it's very interesting because I wrote very freely in the first year. All I did was character. She had to have a voice. She was doing a lot of navel gazing, and it wasn't interesting. It was fascinating from a sort of Zen Buddhist point of view. Then they said, there's not enough plot, and so I went full James Bond on her ass. So she's now, everything's happening all the time. What was the question again? The research. So because we were at varsity and because it was historical, I did a hell of a lot of research, and I didn't bother too much about it in the beginning, but when I went back to copy, edit, read it again, proofread it again, read it again, then read it again and again, I then fact-checked the history. So, for example, in the beginning you'll find when she talks about the, for the little Jewish people, the Yiddles among us, on Pesach, when we have a Pesach plate, there's always a roasted egg. This is just a silly example. There's a roasted egg which represents the destruction of the temple. But my story is written before the destruction of the temple. So it couldn't be a roasted egg anymore, because if any Jewish person said there were no roasted eggs in 33 AD, I changed the roasted egg to a dandelion, which is a bitter herb which then also represents time. So I did a lot of, thank God for the internet, seriously, but you also have to fact check when you're at varsity to check the actual historical truth. But the closer it got to the present day, the more accurate in a sense I had to be, because people can check. It's almost like a crown, like when you got to die, like it was like that never happened, but who cares what happened to Queen Victoria. So I found a lot of, what happened was it would be what you'd call the coincidences that then I took. So Queen Victoria, actually, there were several attempts on her life, assassination attempts. In 1842, there was an attempt where she wasn't killed, but she was shot, and I found that very interesting, that her husband protected her with a chainmail umbrella. And so that kind of interested me, so then I wrote about 38 chapters before I chose the 11 that had to finalize. So the answer is, the research was the writing, and then how the writing would interact with history, and then how it would be funny. Because if it wasn't funny, it lost, it was rejected. Or in other words, it didn't have the satirical element. So yeah, I did a lot of research and a lot about history. I've been around a long time, 2,000 years in fact. I mean, that's remarkably good. Remarkably good for being around for 2,000 years. So, what do you wonder? Do you think you found your own distinct voice in this book? A new celestial key? Why not? I don't know.
I think to all of the writers in the room, and anyone who's ever done something of a fictional, because memoir is one thing and I can just tell my story, but plot and character require the voice. And like I keep looking at Madeleine, because you weren't in that first year, is the character. I was the character, and then she became the character. And then I could express my voice through that character, and I could say a whole lot of stuff, which is what fiction is. I can say what I like through her voice. So if anyone says to me, why are you criticizing this and that? I'm not criticizing anything, I'm just voicing. So the creative experience was finding a character through which I could express my ideas, and my girls will know, my creative skills, a lot of the time Wanda will just emerge out of me. Well, she's a kind of exaggerated, historically accurate, but far sexier version of me. That's going to take some doing. Thanks, Kate. I think you're fabulous. Thank you, absolutely fabulous. So next up, what do you wonder? Can you explain what the pleroma is? Where did you first encounter this idea? So this is the tweet version. Having written character for a year and then plot for a year, I wanted her to always die, because I wanted to explore what it was like to be immortal. I mean, we're all so worried about dying and dying. What if you don't? What if you don't die? And it's very interesting. That interested me. The pleroma. So what happens, for those of you who haven't read the book, it's episodic in each era, and then the pleroma is the kind of linking structure in which the muses appear.
It is a Jungian concept, and for those Jungians in the room, it's in actual fact, I can read you a little piece, but basically the pleroma is this interstitial in-between world, where a lot of magic realism takes place. You know, they float, that things happen that wouldn't happen in reality. And I originally wanted it to be a kind of, in Judaism they call it Shoah, which is this nowhere place that nobody ever talks about because Jews don't reincarnate. Only 300,000 of us are allowed to, you know. There's hell, which I didn't want because really hell is other people. You know, we're here right now, and in fact, the Hindus believe that we're in hell already. So the pleroma it was a nice word, and I liked it, and I explored the whole Jungian thing. But basically, it's the unconscious. To a degree, it's the other place, it's the place in between. So she always goes, it's almost like a rest stop between lives. So I got it from Uncle Carl, without permission because he's been dead for more than 50 years. But I created it as my own place where there's Karen Rosen. She doesn't like to be, and actually I based the whole thing on Karen Rosen. She's in her 9th incarnation and she's the youngest. She's just shout out to the Waverley girls, the Waverley Oaks, who are ruining the furniture over here. So yeah, so the pleroma is the linking narrative superstructure into which I put my muses and Wanda, who gets rejected and rejected and rejected. So she eventually rejects their advances in this pleronic space and finds her voice.
Quite fascinating, really.
You just need to end the book with a seat.
Thanks.
No, there's a spoiler alert. If you want to read the book backwards, Mandy, you can read it backwards and it actually reads quite more interestingly than forwards. But yes, and in fact, just to Mandy's point, when I did the M&A, I did not want her to transcend, I did not want her to grow. In the picaresque form, the same thing happens over and over and over again, which it does, because the thematics and eternal return and all. But to your point is, read the book. No, it's not a spoiler alert.
When I get my copy.
Bitch! Thank you, Lynn.
What do you wonder? The novel has a surrealistic whirlwind quality. Why did you choose the style? What other options did you consider?
This is the most pretentious thing I'm going to say this morning. The words chose me, okay? I once met a guy who said that he didn't become a priest became him. And if you find like a musician became you and a physician became you, I do write in a kind of lurid, it was called quiptastic. I'm a copywriter. I've got to get everything into 7 words in a headline. So this is opportunity to explore my own insanity and creativity. I was accused once of, it sounded like 2 orchestras were playing in 2 different rooms and colliding. So I have eased up on that. It was much madder before. But I would just sit down and write and then clear up, and they're putting their watches. What do you want? Signing. Oh, that's it. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. Anything else you want to know, read the book.
Thank you, Lynn. We will be back at 12 o'clock for another round of What Wonders. But in the meantime, please help yourself to drinks and snacks. And Lynn is going to be sitting at this table on my left, where she will start signing the copies of the books that you have purchased. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. We'll do some more later. Oh, just one last thing. This is Michael Sade over here. Mike Sade. Shout out to Mike. Mike is gonna wander around, and he's gonna ask you, what do you wonder? Just, you know, with the social media. If you don't wonder anything, then don't wonder anything. But if you don't want him to, just tell him to piss off. But he's gonna come around and ask you. And I just want to do a shout out to my creatives crew who organized this beautiful backdrop, who I love beyond measure. Tandy and Neo and Kat and Mabato, and to my husband Herlo, who has actually had to put up with me for a number of years. I think he's gone. Is he there? My love, my love, my love. There he is, Herlo. Thank you for all of it.